Howdy lovelies, how are you all doing? Welcome back to our crafting, where we learn, grow and craft together. In today's session, we are going to make a last minute Easter card, seeing that it is Easter weekend, and we are going to use collage fodder for it. Now, a few questions might arise. Firstly, what is collage fodder? And then, how do we use it? And then maybe there's another question as to how do we make it. I will show you all of this in today's session. As always, this session will be focused on the beginner. So I will show you how to draw an egg shape. We will make a card, like I said, and we will go through the what eases the house to use it and how to make the collage fodder that I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's start. Collage fodder is anything that you use to make a collage with. Now this can be paper, cardstock, it can be textiles, it can be yarn, threads, tapestry. All of those things can be part of collage fodder. And yes, you can combine paper with textiles as well. For today's session, I'm not going to use any textiles. I'm just focusing on paper. Now, it can be as easy as to splash some stains or inks on paper. This was cardstock, a very thin cardstock. You can see how this had actually seeped through as it's quite saturated and it's gone through this very thin cardstock. Quite beautiful. I made a tag with this previously where I've used a part of this. Let me show that to you. In this tag, I've used various pieces that you will recognize from this tag. I used that part, which is at the back. You can't see it because I covered the back in white paper, just so that it can be used as a journal card. But this was that. You can see that the colors are exactly the same. This strip, this whole piece was that. I cut it off this side or that side. I think it was rather that side because that's a little bit more blue. And then I added the other pieces of paper on top of it and finalized it with this die cuts that I've added here. So these three were added lastly, and I added a stencil with white jelly pen on top. That's additional. You could simply do plain paint splatters. I almost said plain paint splatters, which you can use acrylic paint and thin it out with some water. Not too much water. You still want to see that consistency of the paint, but it will be in a more liquid form, and you can splash it on with whatever paintbrush you want, whether a splatter brush. You can even use a toothbrush. In one of my previous sessions, I had shown you how to use a toothbrush to make paint splatters. It was about in session 15, I think, of what is in the basket series. So for today's session, we're going to make an Easter card using collage fodder. Now, the first step would be, I just want to show you quickly. I'll hold it on one side and just flip through. I use some of that. Mark making is all that you do. I use some music sheets for that, some old contracts, and yes, I did blemish my financials or my personal information on here so that it is not open for fraud. The same with these ones. You can use gesso to disguise those things. Mark making. This, I was just sitting making circles of various forms on here. This was done with stencils. Stamps, again cardstock, which is a little bit thicker with some grey and black stamping on top. Love the oranges and reds on there. More mark making, more ink splatters with distress paint sprays. This was not intentional. This sheet was used to do another project on. And as it was running and do its own thing, this was the excess of the pigment inks and whatever else I was using. You can see where I tapped it to let the excess run off, how I sprayed it, and it actually came on here. Very fine dots. It looks like a speckled egg almost. This was also done coloring cardstock, very thin cardstock. You can see the other side is fine, but if you lift it, there's some that is just shining through. Not seeping through, but just shining through. It's got some lines on it, which was totally unintentional, and then this almost watermark on top, which is absolutely beautiful. This was also unintentional. This was an old envelope that I used, and you can see some of that ink is seeping through from that other one. So here I just used some acrylic paint on top, and as I was working on another project, this just evolved, and as I was using the paint and adding more and getting more colors sorted, it just spread, and eventually I just smeared that little bit around it just to finish that off. And this is collage fodder without even trying to do something more. Then I used some bottle caps to do, and just some mark making, scribbles, some lines, and also this one I love sitting. It's a very satisfying art to do, and you can just release all those negative energies, and it is especially useful for people that are fighting against depression and anxiety. You cannot be disturbed when you are doing this. There is no end result. It does not have to be perfect. And I think that is what is so awesome for me. Parts that I've used already, obviously not throwing away. You can add this at a later stage. More mark making, sometimes matte paint, other times glossy paint. Use whatever you have. These were all done with acrylic paints. You can do the same thing with water paint or gouache. You don't have to go out and buy new things. Use what you have. If you don't have, maybe go to the food cupboard and see if you've got some food coloring and get a few little tubs, maybe something like an egg tray that doesn't have holes at the bottom. Put a few drops of food coloring in and a little bit of water in each, and you can use that and just make marks on paper. And the idea is to enjoy yourself. So whatever you do, nobody can say it should be this way or that. Just a reminder, straight lines, curvy lines. We can have some swirls or those spirals going. Remember when we were in lower elementary and we had made all those patterns? Tap into your inner child again, and you can release them and they can have fun, and you can then do all these patterns. Sometimes it's just good to forget about the world around us and just focus on something so easy, colorful, as you want it to be. It can be monochrome. You can use black on white paper. You can use marker pens. You can use paint pens. You can paintbrush sets, those pens that have got the fine tips for paint. That is so used by the people that's doing calligraphy because it's got a soft stroke. Anything can do. This was just a square paintbrush, a flat, that I just made a repeater pattern with. This one I just painted the back and then done more or less the same, and just with purple filled in the lines. 2 different parts on the same page. You can do 4 parts if you so wish. Anything will do. Here I have used, this is a thicker cardboard, some stenciling, all of this. So let's get started on that egg shape. What we need would be a piece of scrap paper just to draw our egg shape. I need to trace it on the card. So let's see what I have here. Will this be big enough? Our card is about 6 by 6 inches. Let's just check to make sure. No, this is not a new ruler. I just put new washi tape on here. 6 by 6. Right. So the height of this, I'm going to just snip it off there. I always have extra paper around here. I just want to get the height of this more or less. Not too high, not too high. We still want to do something to decorate this. So let's see. When we make an egg shape, it's not an oval. It's almost an oval. I wonder what's an oval. But the top part, or the bottom, depends on how you look at it, is then a little bit narrower than the rest of it. So the length, we're going to draw a line in the middle. I'm going to turn it this way. So for the length of this, I'm going to more or less draw it like that, just so that we have space. And we should probably just measure that, just 4 1/16. So at the widest part of this egg would be about there. So we're going to mark that. Then the smallest part is there, and this one is just slightly smaller than that line, sort of, more or less. So what we're going to do is draw a line from there to there, which is 3 2/8. From there to there. This one now needs to be a little bit shorter, so it cannot be 3 2. Let's move it a little bit and make it 3. And it sounds crazy, but it's not. So that one we want to make it 2 and a bit, so let's do that. We'll do it there. More or less. Now we're going to connect this. Would it be perfect? No, but you will get a better egg shape than you would have otherwise. This one should have just been a little bit there. Sorry, people. You could do the one side and fold it in half and cut, and it should be perfect. Which side do we like the best? I think this one just needs a little bit of tapering there. maybe a little bit wider there. So let's use this side, and we can then cut this out. So I'm going to fold this in half, kind of defeating the objective, but it will still work out. So there is our little piece. Now let's just make sure if we turn it over, we don't have the lines. There we have our egg shape. There we have our egg shape. Now we're going to use this to decorate. If you want to, you can go ahead and cut this out on your card, opening it whichever way you want, from the bottom upwards, or you can open it like a normal card. I'm just going to decorate this on top, and we will put some flowers there. So this part, as we're going to glue it down, I will then be gluing this down onto the card. So let's get started with the decorating of our Easter egg. We're going to take some of our Collage Fodder pieces. Let's see what we're going to use. I want just thick paper, something bright. I think a bit of yellow maybe, some blue, maybe some of this pink. And what about some green? Let's see, something simpler. Oh, these are all upside down, which makes it a bit difficult. Maybe some of that yellow will be nice. Kind of like this red as well, and a bit of this green. All right, let's see what we can incorporate in here. Remember, we now have to do it smaller parts, so let's get started. What do we want for the bottom part? A glue stick. Let's get a glue stick so that we can get started, and we will trim away as we go on. So not too much of this, about that, and there. So to help us, I'm just grabbing a cellophane packaging material so that I can actually work on that. You can decorate this vertically, diagonally, horizontally, different lines. It really is up to you how you decide to do this. I'm just going to add some glue there, and then going to glue this down. The next one, I think some green would be lovely. Just make sure that you burnish it well and the glue is sticking well. Now for the next one, it will be a little bit more tricky, so I'm going to just tear a piece of paper. Oh, sorry, metal ruler. It's a metal ruler. And I'm going to add glue to the paper, which will probably make it easier to glue down and not have glue everywhere. Just wipe the extra glue off the work table. Burnish it. Make sure that it is sticking well. And this is going to keep on gluing everywhere, so I'll just trim these two colors for now. There we have two parts of the Easter egg already. Now let's get some glue in there, maybe a little thicker strip. Again, we can tear that off. Just put glue on. Same thing is going to happen. It will stick everywhere. Make sure there's no white sticking out. Fingernail or the card. You can use a bone folder for this. But remember, this is for those people that don't have all the tools yet. Just trimming off the excess. Yes, we could do this all at the end, but seeing that there is glue on those parts, it does make it a bit more difficult. I would want to end, I'm I'm going to try and snip off this part just here. Maybe that was out of frame. I just cut off or snipped off this part, and now it doesn't fit in on my sole. There we go. So I just snipped that off because I want this part on there. I'm going to glue that down first, and for this I will use this part again. Ruler, I need the ruler just to guide this glue a little bit. Take it off the cellophane, and then I can glue that down. Now for this I want a straight line across, just so that it can fit in properly, and I'm going to just glue that down on top there, so that I've got a bit of that yellow. Now, two thinner parts, this one is then done. We will trim that off at the end. So let's get some of this thing going. I want a wider piece, so let's go ahead and just tear off some. Maybe a little bit thinner than that. And the same thing, put glue on there so that we can then attach this to the egg shape. Of course, you can mass produce this easily. What you trim off from the one, you can then add to the next. And I notice that I don't have glue on the ends. Let's just trim all of the excess off now. And yes, your scissors can get sticky. I will just wipe mine down now, and then we will just quickly do first aid on this. Just lift up the parts where there's no glue. It sometimes happens. I'll just run that across, and now we can glue that down properly. And then one last thin little strip. I want some of this yellow. And again, I'm going to just tear off a little strip. Now, when it's getting very thin like this, it's sometimes difficult to tear it this way. So what do? We hold it the other way, more or less how you want it. So I line it up with my cutting lines on my board, hold the ruler in place, and then hold it down and tear the bigger piece. That way you get your strip done, and you don't sit and battle to pull up a tiny little bit. Again, we're going to just put glue on the little strip. Might be more time consuming to do it this way. I see other people do it completely on the cellophane or on a book page. And that is the last bit. I'm going to repeat another one. Just trim the one side, put more glue. I'm going to add another one a bit lower down, maybe there. And this is what I mean with mass producing. You can use the same strip over and over and on various card fronts if you so wish. And we can do one at the very bottom there. But I want a bit there. So there's more of that green sticking out. Burnish it well to make sure it sticks down properly. And now we can trim the excess. Turn it over so you can see. Nobody will see the back side of this. You could have cut it out and then placed it in a little frame on your card. In other words, mat it. So now, let's get our card sorted. We're going to add this there. Let's get some lines. To first get my paint pens, and let's use maybe a light blue color. We'll get the paint flowing, and we are going to just draw lines across. A little bit more depth. Yes, it can be washed off because this is also just acrylic paint. It truly can just wash off the cutting board. And the last one there, and there we have it. There we have it. Just completely putting more lines across, and that is it. Just make sure that you also wipe your ruler once you use that, so that you don't accidentally still use it while the paint is still wet, and then you might get some paint on your card front. So now we're going to glue this down on our card front, and we're going to add a few flowers. I think this looks too gorgeous. I want to just move it a tiny little bit to this side. So add some glue, Again, I do this so that I can make sure that there's glue right on the ends of this, because I push my project then right into the glue tube and it can get glue all over. Then I put it down and put glue on the rest of it. I know other people do it on book pages. I simply can't. To me, it's just wasteful to throw that away. So let's attach this. Once it's glued down, it's glued down. And I'm going to put it there. I just want to turn it over so I can see if it is skew. That way. And burnish it again. This one looks as if it's lifting up. Yes, indeed it is. I don't want to get glue all over the show now. Let's just check the other side. We should have maybe checked that before the time. And there we have that one. So that is done. So I've got a few flowers that I previously done for a project. Sometimes I will run some out. Let me just see what I have here. Sorry, it sounds terrible working with that, but let's see what we have here. Do we have enough? Yes, we've got a yellow one. We can do a yellow one. We've got 3 of those. We've got an orange one. We've got pink. So we can finalize the pink ones. We do not have orange, which is sad, but that is not a problem whatsoever. Now I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'll show you how I do this. I'm going to just lift this up quickly, just using, don't need a lot, So I'm going to put glue on this flower, and we're going to put that one in there, and it will look as if it's behind that egg. And then we can do the same with this one here. Still not glued down properly, so that half a flower there, glue in the center. I crinkled that one a bit, but it's okay, it will still be all good. It's only paper. Once it's glued down, it will be perfect. There we go. So for now it doesn't look impressive, but let's get going. When there's quiet moments, you must know I'm thinking. I want to just grab a bit of, you can do it with this as well. Let's build this flower quickly. Put some glue in the middle. We're going to layer it. Just turn it a little bit so that we get maximum effect of that. And then a little bit of glue in the middle of this one. And we are going to add this flower. And that's why I wanted to work with a little bit more yellow. There's our flowers. That one is done. So let's do the pink one quickly. Liquid glue would have been so much easier. Just putting glue on the middle of that one. And I've got a bit of extra glue there before it smears everywhere. Let's take it off. In the middle of that flower. Right, and then in the middle of this flower. Now we just need the yellow part for inside here. And I will do the orange one there on the yellow flower. Just give that a moment to dry. We can use these ones. Then I have just one little flower left. We need some leaves. Some scrap paper will do for that. Let's put the leaves of the flowers out of the way for a moment. I used this paper to cut out some die cut some time ago, so let's just use some of this. So we're just going to snip away and make a leaf. Doesn't have to be perfect. So we've got one leaf there, one here, just in the general shape of a leaf. We need about 3. This one I will just, there's no mark on it, so we will just cut. And no, we don't throw this away. There's still a lot that we can use. Showing you the negatives of where I had done the die cuts. This can easily, if it was a straight piece, could have been cut down and glued onto something else. If it was cardstock, you could have used this as it was. That goes for any die cut. You can always use the negatives. So let's continue and assemble this. Some glue. Just put some glue on the leaves. always add the leaves to the flower itself and then place it however you wish. If that is more appealing to you, by all means you can do that. You do you. You find your natural rhythm with doing things like this. Now I just want to put glue on the back of this flower so that we can get it stuck down, and also on the leaf. To the yellow one there, and then the pink one this side. We actually need one more flower on here. We will probably use that one. Let's see. I will just put glue on here. This one I need something with a very fine tip. I'm not going to use this very big flower. It will just be out of sorts. So I will be using this. As is, some contrast would have been perfect. I don't have that. I'm not going to run the die cut machine now. I'm just going to use a tiny piece of paper to cut a small little leaf out. Just a tiny little leaf. Just wanting to make sure. And a bit of glue here and there. Why do I use this glue now? Because it's got this very fine tip nozzle, and it makes the application of the glue so much easier. Of course, you can just put a little bit of glue where you need it, and you can lift it up so easily. And I want to place that there, more or less, and I'll place the leaf underneath there, and then I'll use this tiny one just next to it. Still thinking maybe closer to that orange flower. And there we have it. So there is our beautiful Easter card. I hope you enjoyed today's session on the collage fodder and how you can use it, what it is, how you can make it. We didn't really focus too much on that, but if you remember, it is just mark making, and it can be anything where you are making marks on paper or on cardstock. You can use textiles for it. You can use ribbon, lace, yarn, any of those things. And there we have our beautiful Easter card. To all those celebrating, have a blessed Easter with your loved ones, family, friends. Stay safe. And of course, always be blessed. Thank you for joining me today. If you want to go try this for yourself, and you do, please tag Wawa Crafting on social media. If you want to see more content like this, give me a thumbs up. And as always, I will appreciate it if you subscribe to my channel too. If you haven't done so yet, please hit that little bell so that you can be notified every time I upload new content. See you back soon. Goodbye.